How did you gravitate towards the bass?
Well, I did it because originally I was a rhythm guitarist in local bands in Cambridge, and it just sort of things changed. You know, the rhythm guitar kind of went out of fashion. Three-piece bands came in with Jimi Hendrix and people like that, Johnny Kidd and the Pirates. Just it just kind of went out, and I always wanted to play bass. Basically, I really did. So I, just basically begged and begged and begged my mother to come up to London with me and get me a Fender bass, which is what I did. Went to
And
Charing
Fender
Cross.
bass must have cost a fortune back then, yes?
It wasn't that bad. I mean, back in the 60s, they weren't that expensive compared to what they are now. They were probably a little over £100 in London, which, still was a lot of money because, my dad was probably earning £25 a week or something like that. He was he's a carpenter and joiner, but that was still, we didn't have a lot of spare money. So it was hard. So we had to do it on what they call hire purchase in those days. Put some money down and pay for it on a monthly basis.
No,
that's how I got my first Precision.
One of the things David and I noted just talking about your bass tracks is you definitely play with a decidedly rhythm and blues disposition. Is that reflective on the records and the music you were listening to at the time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I started out really, really loving the Shadows, Cliff Richard's backing group. That was my band. I just thought they were terrific. I saw them live a couple of times in Cambridge at the Regal Cinema, and they were just so good, and they sounded great. The Fender Stratocaster with the Vox amp. It was just, it was what it was, and that's what really got me into it. But I've always tried to play with feel more than anything. I just love the idea. I'm not a very technical bass player as such because I listened to something and I could pretty much pick it up and play it. I've always had that ability. I mean, I didn't learn to read music or anything like that. I just listened to records and learned to play.
Did you have any formal training at all?
Not really, no. I mean, I had Bert Whedon's Playing a Day book to learn all the chords and stuff, and I did that. And when we moved to Cambridge in 1960, my mother took over a college house for students. That was, they were at college at Pembroke College, and my mum ran the house to look after the boys. Basically, we had 9 students in our house, as well as us living there in the back. And one of the guys who were there the first year we were there was a guy called Alan Herbert, and he had a really beautiful Hofner Big President guitar, and he used to teach me chords and just progressions and stuff, C, A minor, F, G, stuff like that. And just gradually I taught myself how to play by listening to all the records of the day. And boy, there was a lot of bands coming up in the 60s, as you know. I mean, the beginning of the 60s, it wasn't so much because it was mainly still American music we were listening to. But soon the English bands just kind of, I don't know, just took over really. And they were good too. So, I mean, a lot of them were just excellent players. So you could learn from that. That's what I did. And I just took over the bass, and I was in a band called the Soul Committee in Cambridge. And, we got pretty good. We had 2 American singers who were on the Air Force at Alconbury Base, just outside of Cambridge. And one was called Fitz and one was called Dennis. And it was Fitz and Dennis. And they joined the Soul Committee and taught us all the American soul stuff, from the Temptations, from Little Richard, all these great people, James Brown. And we learned a lot of stuff that way. We really did, because these guys were on it. They were totally on it. And
quite a difference from learning on YouTube, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't have anything like that in those days. There was no computers like we're talking on now, and it was all different. You just went out and bought a record, took it home and listened to it, played it till it wore out, basically. That was about it. But it was enjoyable because I just loved doing what I did. I just got in local bands and got to know people around Cambridge, like David Gilmour, for instance, and people like that. kept my eye on him pretty closely because I knew he was going somewhere because he was so damn good looking and so good, you know, and he could sing great as well. So when he came to me one night in a pub in Cambridge and said, "Hello, I've been approached to do something with my life," basically. He said, "Yeah, Jonathan King, who's at college in Cambridge, had taken him to London to meet such people as Brian Epstein, manager of the Beatles, Andrew Oldham, the Stones." And he said, they sort of more or less said to David, "Look, why don't you form your band that you want, and we'll put you abroad somewhere. We'll send you away so you can get your act together, you know." And that's basically what we did. We took this trip from London to Spain, to right down to the south of Spain to Marbella, which was a hell of a journey in those days on trains.
Mhm.
But we didn't fly, and it took us, I don't know, 3 or 4 days to get there.
Wow.
And you know, it was just such a journey for all of us to do. It was like such an adventure, as well as, you know, getting to learn to be in a band together.
And that
But
was Joker's Wild, yes?
well, that's what it formed. It came out of Joker's Wild, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This was a band David was in Cambridge that did kind of Four Seasons and Beach Boys stuff, harmony stuff. And I used to sit in with them from time to time because David's brother, Peter, had a girlfriend who he liked to dance with quite a lot. So he would get off the bass and give me his Hofner bass and let me play. And that's what we did. And, you know, we became really good friends, all of us. And that lasted a long time, really, until we came back from that whole abroad thing. And we were all pretty ill because we hadn't been earning very much money and we were starving, basically. And of course, when we got back to England, it was late '67. And David got a call about Pink Floyd because he
Right.
knew them. He knew the guys. They needed help because Sid Barrett was not functioning very well, shall we say, because of the acid he'd taken and just changed him terribly. And gradually, David was sort of introduced into the band, and Sid was let go. He just
Right.
didn't pick him up for a gig one day, basically. You know,
Right.
you know how nice musicians can be.